Definitely designed to be a really tough opening schedule for us, just to see where we are as far as competitors and see where we are. They threw me out of the
Yeah, we almost got ran over there.
Welcome to the Augusta Sports Report, hosted by Chad Cook. For more information on what we talk about today, visit AugustaBball.com.
Okay, this is the Augusta Sports Report. I'm Chad Cook. I've got two special guests with me today, but this is our first show, and it's going to be all about the tip-off of the high school basketball season and the college basketball season, which is basically underway. This Friday, Augusta University will hit the court, and this Saturday, Jones County will host a high school invitational, which will feature tons of teams from the Augusta area, and we've got Jones County head coach Buck Harris, who is an Augusta native and a well-known friend of all of us. We've got him on today's show, and we also have Keenan Mann sitting across from me. Keenan is also has decades of experience and knowledge with the Augusta area high school and college scene. We'll get into all of that. And so before we get into the high school season and the interviews that we have with high school coaches and our reaction to some of those, we will, and then also a little preview of Augusta University's opening weekend. We're going to talk to our two guests, let everybody get to know them a little better. Some people might know them, some people might not, and everybody should get to know Buck and Keenan, in my opinion, two good old friends of mine. So let's start with you, Buck. Talk to us about, going way back to the 1980s, being a star at Westside High School basketball. Imagine that, Buck being a star at basketball. It's true, you young people. And, on to your junior college and college days at Augusta College, which was what we called it at the time, your coaching career, all the different stops you've made, the different levels, and, reorient, re-educate all of us on your Augusta basketball journey.
Very quickly, back when I was in the ninth grade, I almost was a Musketeer. We were playing in the summer league game at Richmond at May Park. And Coach Brock and Gerald White were walking out, and Coach Brock said, that boy need to come to Richmond. So, I got to Westside, and I didn't like it at first, and I thought about it, but I ended up staying at Westside, and I kind of regret it because, we weren't very good my junior and senior year. And then Keenan and Chuck had a lot of success down there, but things work out for the best. And Keenan and I ended up being teammates at Augusta College anyway. So it's always good to have, guys that you play with that you still can reconnect with. Now, when I left Westside, I went to Texas for 2 years, and it was a struggle. Because I've never been outside of the state of Georgia. Well, I've been to Florida, but going to Texas and not knowing anybody, had some good and some bad. Played 2 years for a really good guy, and I graduated, of course, and I met my first wife out there and had 3 kids, and came back and played for Coach Bryant for 2 years, and ended up working for Clint for about 2 or 3 years, and worked for another guy, Gary Toole. I spent a total of 9 years at Augusta State, and then I left to go to Campbell University, which was a Division I school, and spent 5 years there. And things happen for a reason, and then I ended up coming back to Augusta, and I got to be not a head coach. I was the JV coach to Coach Hunter, who's now the head coach at Westside. But that was a very humbling time for me because I went from the top assistant at a Division I level to coaching JV under a baseball guy. So, you talking about some humble pie right there, but Coach Hunter and I, no egos, we got it done and won a state championship together in 2012. And he stepped down he coached in 2013, and I took over after that. And I stayed 2 years at Laney and had a very successful track and coached some very good basketball players there. And I ended up going to Baldwin for 4 years and had some success there and won a couple of region championships and went to the Final Four. And now I'm trying to do the same thing at Jones County. So going into year 3, I really like my team. I got some very good guards that I would put against anybody in the state. And we're looking forward to the season.
I agree with you about your team. I got to see 3 of your players at the Select 60, Lineage of Champions Select 60 a month or 2 ago, and one of them in particular has the same last name as you, and I hear he's your son. He's a heck of a player, Dathan Harris. I'm joking about hearing that he's your son. So before we move on, as we move on to you, Keenan, did you know that Buck was almost a Musketeer?
I did not know that. That's news to me. But I can top it though, Buck, because you said you were almost a Musketeer. I almost wasn't a Musketeer.
So start with that. Tell us about your journey and
All right. So you showed up I showed up at Richmond in the 9th grade, and basketball season came around, and I went out for the team. Now I didn't know how this stuff worked, at least at Richmond. And so you said the baseball coach at Laney and all that. At Richmond, the football coach, one of the football coaches, was the JV basketball coach. So the other thing that I didn't know was that what he did to shortcut the tryout process was essentially take a lot of his favorite football players and turn them into basketball players when the season started. So you remember how big I was in college, Buck. Imagine me 4 years prior to that.
They say Keenan couldn't bench the bar in college. I think that's not true, but that's what they used to say.
So I was probably 6'4" and 140 pounds, and trying out for JV, and got cut. But everybody around the school knew I could play a little bit. And so they were all surprised. And then season goes on. We're in the gym after the season, and Buck, I don't know if you remember the big guy that played for Coach Brock. He was just a big, enforcer or whatever you want to call him, named Troy. He was probably close to 6'6", and he was probably 190 or something like that. And I was wearing him out. He was a senior, and I was wearing him out in the post, and Coach Talbert, who was the JV coach at the time, he walked on the court and stopped and said, "Young man, what grade are you in?" And I told him, and he said, "Why didn't you come out?" And I said, "I did." And he said, I said, "I did. You cut me." He said, "Well, are you going to try out next year?" And I said, "I don't know, man. I might." So that's my story about almost being not being a Musketeer. I did end up going out for JV in the 10th grade and made the team, but the formula hadn't changed. It was still all the football players there. So it took us about 5 or 6 games of losing before he gave me a shot. And then from then on, well, actually for the next 3 years, I never came off the starting roster. So fast forward just a little bit, we get to my senior year, and Larry Epperly, and I don't know if you remember that name, Buck, but Larry Epperly he was the head coach at USC Aiken. He was the one and only guy. We got those letters, but kids call that getting recruited today. But even back then, I knew that wasn't true. That they just sent you a letter. So I had a few of those from odd places. But Larry Epperly actually came and sat in my living room and said, "Will you come to USC Aiken?" And I was going. It was a done deal, even though it wasn't a quote full ride. So, but then I don't know how it happened, but it was probably 3 weeks after I had decided that's where I was going. Coach Brock comes and gets me out of class and puts me in the yellow van, and we drive up Walton Way to Augusta, and Clint's there. He's just been announced as the new coach and AD, and sight unseen. Now, he knew Gerald and he knew Coach Brock. Never had seen me play. Said, well, I'm going to give you a scholarship. You won't have to pay for anything. You have to, just show up. And now he did say to me, and I still tease him about this to this day. He did say that I'd probably never play. And he said I'd be his project. And he laughs at that to this day. He said I'd be his project. And I was like, fine, you're going to let me play college basketball, and I'm going to get a scholarship, and everything's going to be free. So I went there, and it was funny. It was a kind of a repeat of the thing that happened in JV. We were terrible for the first 5 or 6 games. And I ended up starting at Chad's alma mater. The South Carolina State game, we walk in the locker room, and I'm in the starting lineup. And that was it. So for the next 4 years, I was starting at Augusta. And the funny thing is, and you can relate to this, the only reason that was possible was because I was so prepared by a good coach. Your people call you a good coach, and I know why. I've been around you, and that's the same thing that happened to me. I wasn't anything special. I just kind of knew how to play basketball and was able to learn and kind of pick it up. So that was my journey. I ended up playing it, obviously, for 4 years at Augusta, and had a decent career. And at the end of all of that, total shock. Still kind of doesn't make sense to me. Clint retired my jersey, and God, what was the name of that team? Back then, there was something called the GBA, I believe is the name of it. I actually got drafted.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember that. And that's when I realized how good I wasn't. Because everybody in there was, my height and could run and jump and shoot. And so not only did you have to be good, you had to be lucky, you had to be in the right place, you had to be performing at the right time. I say all the time, except for in any sport, there's a few superstars and then there's the rest of us. I mean, being able to play is kind of the price of entry. If you're on an NBA roster, you're a player. And then you got to be able to figure out your role once you get there. But I kind of got off the bus at the end of my as far as my playing days were concerned with Augusta College, and then started coaching a little bit, which you'll I'm sure because you picked it up. We started the Augusta Metro AAU team, and Chad was one of the players on back in both those teams, and we had some pretty good names on there. Ricky Moore and Tyrone Shine, and God, we could go on. Donald Little, everybody I just named played Division I basketball, major Division I basketball, and there's a few more that I can't think of right now.
Well, speaking of names, let me interject if you don't mind. You just said a lot of them, and some of you know them, some of you don't. So, he talked about Chuck Graham, a teammate of his who, was a junior when Keenan was a senior. In my opinion, Chuck Graham and Keenan Mann were the two best basketball players to come through here, but that's tainted by my age and the fact that I was young, watching them as a young person. And so, that's an Augusta basketball legend. He talked about Don Brock, the coach from Richmond who was recently inducted into the Richmond Academy Hall of Fame, a Augusta basketball legend. Clint Bryant, the AD at Augusta University now and the longtime coach at Augusta College who coached Buck and Keenan, Augusta basketball legend. And then you also mentioned Gerald White in there, who all-time leader in assists and steals at Auburn. Long Augusta basketball legend, alumni of Richmond Academy, and then you mentioned, and then how I fit into these two guys. I was kind of like the ball boy at Augusta College as a 7th or an 8th grader, and then I was lucky enough to be coached by these guys, like Keenan just alluded to, when they were the coach of the Augusta Metros, the first AAU basketball team to ever be here, and one that went to all the way eventually to the championship game of the AAU Nationals, which is like today's Peach Jam. So we got within double overtime of winning the whole thing, and guys like Ricky Moore, who went on to be a national champion at UConn, Vonteego Cummings, who played 3 years in the NBA, and in a 2 or 3 year time period, literally too many to count when it comes to high major Division I basketball players. You literally can't count them. They went to South Carolina, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, UConn, Duke, Seton Hall, and the list goes on. So that's an introduction to these guys. And then also, before we get into the current players and the current teams, Keenan has extended his, athletic career into a long business career, and he's the owner of Mann Advisory Services, MAS. So that's mannadvisory.com. Is that the?
Mann Advisory,
Yeah, manadvisor.com. And he does offers a unique service, one that you won't find out there in the marketplace. So hopefully we'll be able to talk to that before, we talk about that before we wrap things up. Now, let's get into the high school basketball opener this weekend. The big event in my mind that I'm looking to is the Jones County. Buck, what's the tournament called this weekend? Tell us about it and how, tell us all about it, but also, what I'm really interested in is all the CSRA teams that are competing.
It's called Hoopin in Middle Georgia. And what I want to do initially, I want to have a Middle Georgia versus Augusta type or a CSRA type deal. So I reached out to some guys in the area that I thought would be willing to come. And of course, you want to bring good basketball teams down here. So, of course, I reached out to Darren at Grovetown, and he immediately jumped on board, and Coach Boddy at Butler and Coach D at Greenbrier. And then, of course, Hunter was the last guy that I got. And just so, Westside is ranked 3rd in AA. Butler is ranked 4th in AA. Greenbrier is going to be very good when he gets his football players out there. Grovetown is going to be one of the top teams in the state. So they're along. I mean, those guys going to bring some good competition, good basketball players. And I got Warner Robins here. They're ranked 9th in their preseason ranked number 5 in 5A. Veterans, even though they lost their best player, they feature a 6'11" kid who's going to block shots and run the floor. And they got a guard, D'Angelo, that's going to be very good. So in Peach County, we just scrimmaged those guys. And I'm telling you, man, that game against Westside, if you don't watch no other game, I mean, that game right there is going to be one to watch.
Well, and it featured the Peach County head coach. Talk about that and why that game's extra special. When I was looking for teams in Middle Georgia, I got Warner Robins immediately. The guy veterans wanted to play. And so I'm sitting there looking at it. And then I remember John saying, if you're having something this summer, call me. So I said, I'm doing this thing on the 13th. Do you want to play? He said, put me down. So he called me 2 weeks later and he said, Coach, you made the schedule. I said, no, not yet. He said, and I knew what he wanted. He said, well, who you got me going against? I said, who you want? He said, you know who I want. So he wants the Westside game, and I gave it to him. So, they're going to play at 5:30 prime time. You got Westside is ranked, 3rd in AA, and Peach County is ranked 7th in AAA. Like I tell my players, when it comes to basketball, you don't have to worry about classification, because this ain't football. You just got 5 dudes out there playing. And that's what it meant. When I was at Laney, we go on the road and we beat Norcross and Buford and those guys. You just got some dudes playing. So one of the things, another thing that I want to do, I want to show people we play basketball outside of Atlanta. So when I was in Augusta, I want to try to make sure, we're going to go play the best teams. So when I get here, I want people to know that we got good basketball here in Middle Georgia. So I think it's one of the, even though it's the first year, I think it's one of the top events in the state right now with the number of teams we got coming in, girls and boys. So from the boys standpoint, man, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and I'm excited about it. Warner Robins is very good. They got one of the top sophomore guards in the state, and they got some shooters. He's going to be missing a few football players. But that game against Greenbrier will be very good. It'll be a very competitive game. And I tried to match teams to who I thought would be a good matchup. And Grovetown actually wanted to play against veterans, which I already had put down. If the kid wouldn't have tore his ACL, that would have been a very, very, very competitive game. But I think right now Grovetown probably, will have the upper hand because they got some players there. I'm excited about this weekend. I really, and I get to play against, Butler and Boddy and I are good friends, and we'll talk, and we talked earlier this week, and so he's got a good ball club, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. So just to inform everybody, when you talked about John and Peach County and all that, so Peach County is coached by John Gordon. John Gordon is the former Westside coach. So when John said, who I want, The answer was Westside. And so you got a matchup, what'd you say, number 3 in 2A Westside against number 7 in 3A Peach County. You're taking on your old rival, your old Butler rival, Cervantes Boddy. Now, we'll cut to these interviews in a little while, but Coach Boddy mentions in that interview that he calls Buck a big brother and a mentor type, but he also mentions the fact that he's never been able to beat Buck. So I think he said he's got you on his list. And then, when it comes to Darren and Grovetown, Darren Douglas, the head coach at Grovetown, he echoes those sentiments about Buck and how he looks up to you, but also, it's interesting because that Grovetown team has 6 guys between 6'5" and 6'9", and then veteran has a 6'10" guy. So great matchups there. And then on the girls, we'll talk to Coach Kim Schlein in a second from Cross Creek, defending state champion. They will be taking on Southwest Dekalb, a Final Four team of a year ago. We've got Butler on the girls' side, the defending region champ, in a region that includes Laney, who's stacked up state titles in 3 of them in the past decade. And so they came out on top over Laney and Josey, who eventually won the state title after a great state playoff run. Butler, the defending region champion from that region, will take on Jones County, which is head coached by Buck's wife. And Coach Fields mentions in our interview the fact that Butler lost to Jones County over the summer. So just a great slate of games. And so now we're going to go ahead and cut to those interviews. We've got interviews with 5 high school coaches. 3 of them, the first 3 are coaches who won their last game last season. Now that's code for they won the state championship. Nobody wins their last game except for the ultimate champions. And Coach Jawan Bailey from Josey, Coach Josey girls, Coach Kim Schlein from Cross Creek, and Coach Lawrence Kelly from Cross Creek's boys team. We'll talk to those 3 first, and then we'll move on to Eboni Fields of Butler, who I just mentioned was the coach of the region champion Butler Lady Bulldogs, and then Coach Darren Douglas of Grovetown, and we get a look at the size on that team, and we get to hear about his philosophy and how he coaches his team, and how there's a couple guys, Malik Ferguson and Darion Reed, who are kind of like quintessential Coach D guys is what he calls them, and he explains why. So we're going to cut to those interviews and come back to Keenan, Buck, and myself in a moment.
And a couple weeks after that, we have Elbert County, who Kyle Sandy ranked as the number 1 team in the state for 2A. And we're going back to their place, which I intentionally wanted to do just to put us back in that atmosphere. So definitely designed to be a really tough opening schedule for us, just to see where we are as far as competitors and see where we are. They threw me out a little.
Yeah, we almost got right over there.
See where we are, that's just learning moments. We have to learn from our failures. You're going to fail a ton during basketball season, whether that's in front of thousands or whether that's in front of your teammates in practice. You're going to fail. I think it's our job as coaches to make sure these kids learn from the failure and not let it destroy them. Making sure those 2 free throws don't destroy Tyshaun, making sure that viral video doesn't destroy the Asia. And just making sure the kids understand it comes with the game of basketball. It comes with you guys trying to be great at this sport, because we're asking you guys to play defense extremely hard. There's going to be times where you're caught in the wrong spots, So it's just getting better from those failures, trying to use those failures as fuel to improve your game and help your team get better, and just trying to keep them encouraged.
So the Elbert County game was scheduled, and then the rankings come out, and they're 1 and you're 2. Yep. Got to be motivation for the players.
Oh, it's motivation. And Elbert wants payback from last year. I don't know how many people have been to Elbert County and inside of their gym, which they call it an Inferno. It is an absolutely crazy environment to play in. Coach wanted to come play us at home, but I was like, Coach, we need to play there again, so we can see that atmosphere and get ready for it mentally and have that up under our belt, as we get to playoff games later on in the season. So Elbert's going to be a huge one. It's going to be a measuring stick for us as far as Class 2A goes.
This is the first time you've started the season as a defending state champion. What's different about that?
Oh, my God. I don't look at it like that, because if I did, I think I wouldn't sleep at night. So right now we're just working hard and we're going about it that way. We're not sitting here, relishing the past. We got to move on, and it's time to start work again. Like I said, the hard part's keeping it and doing it again. Last year, we had 3 things that we worked on every game: run the floor, crash the boards, control the ball. That was it. That was 3 things. That was it. Yeah. That's what you do every game. And that was our motto. And we just, game by game went at it. And, we were very fortunate to get past Lumpkin and get into the state finals. That will actually give me a knowledge of where we got to go. Yeah. It's either we're going to hang with the big dogs or we're going to, we got to see where we're going to go. Yeah. And that's it. And we play North Augusta. We play Cedar Shoals. I mean, our pregame, before region, we've got a heavy lineup. Yes. And we play Josey as well. Yeah. So, I've jumped in hot and heavy and just hope we can handle it.
Yes. Well, that was the mindset from day one when I first came in. If you ask any of those guys that I talked to that graduated this past year, that been in the program for years, I told them their freshman year that we would play for a state championship. We played for one their junior year. We fell a little short, but then we came back their senior year and actually got it done. So like I said, sky's the limit. Our goal is every year is to compete. Our goal is to try to get back there every year. And that's the mindset. That's the tradition that we have built so far here.
Your old friend, our old friend, your old rival of sorts, head coaching rival, Buck Harris. That's a special matchup. Talk about your relationship with Buck and how you're going to be starting the season against an old friend.
Oh, Buck's a mentor, a big brother, and I have yet to beat him.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So I think I'm 0-1 whatever against him. So I'm trying to get that W. He on my list, so I got to get that W against Buck.
Are all those losses or wins for him, losses for you? Are all those Laney Butler matchups?
Yep. No, he beat me when he was at Baldwin too.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. Okay, wow.
So, when he called, I'm coming. I beat up. So.
You got to even that score up bit by bit over the years.
Exactly. And then in the process, I'm always learning. I'm going out there to see what I can steal too.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of that coin. And that just speaks to the reverence we all have for Buck. As a big brother, as a mentor, as if not the best, one of the best coaches to ever come through this area. So. Yeah, when he called, we come. He got that kind of pull. I know we have a really tough schedule. I was talking with one of my former players yesterday, and he was like, "Man, you got an old 2012 schedule." I was like, "Yeah, it's tough." But to answer your question, I know we got Cross Creek. I know we got Jones County. I know we got Grovetown. Yeah. And
those are 3 right there.
Yeah. We got. I don't think it's anything easy on the schedule. Period. And. Thinking about that now, I probably should have, done something different. Yeah. Should have called, But, hey, man, it is what it is. And, we're going to show up and play.
I believe so. I tell the girls that I have now the same thing. We lost a lot last year. So a lot of people are still not expecting us to do as well. So we're still taking that role as the underdog. We like being the underdog, and we got a point to prove. And so that's our motto this year. We got to prove a point that, we still can compete and we can do what we need to do. And hopefully that's how our season turns out. Yes, our first official game, we're going to Jones County. Now, we played them this summer, and they beat us. So, we got to go back and see where we are compared to them. But we play Cross Creek, too, so that's another defending state champion. So that's really going to let us know where we are and what we need to work on.
So, Darren, it would take a man with no sight to walk in here and not notice all this size in this gym.
Just trying to teach guys to the way that I see the game is played now, and that's kind of getting away from ISOs, getting away from going one-on-one, and actually playing this free-flowing style of basketball where you get it up really fast, you make the extra pass, you sacrifice for the guys that's on the side of you. I watch NBA a lot, but I really like watching EuroLeague basketball, and that's kind of the style that they play there. And I think for us it works because not a lot of guys play that way. And it's just what we teach here. We kind of teach all the details, and then we just go from there. Just 2 feet. If you watch all the kind of elite guys, they can play off 2 feet. I'm not saying that these guys are like NBA players. Maybe, luckily, some could, but you want to at least give them the skill set. And so this is from watching, but then like really reaching out to guys who I admire that, coach basketball on all levels, and just really ask them, like, how do you guys get guys to do this? And they say they work on it every day. And so for us, it's helped us because we work on it every single day. And it may be boring to some, but in the game, you can rely on it. Like, man, okay, I'm in danger. Let me get on 2 feet real quick. Maybe I can score it. Maybe I can pass it. It's helped us. It's helped us a lot. I always told people the last 2 years, you guys are good, you guys are this. And so I knew we had holes, but I always tell people we're paying the front end costs. And a lot of people who don't like study business and study all of that, they don't get that. But we're paying front end costs. And like, I always felt like this year would kind of be that year where, okay, these guys who were here as freshmen that had to work hard every single day, had to lift weights almost every single day. Like by now you can start to see fruit, and we're starting to see fruit, but I still feel like we got a long way to go too. I feel like certain guys are my guys, and I have like a huge concentration of them here, but Malik's like a guy who they would say that's a Coach D guy. Carrion's a guy, like pretty much all of these guys 1 through 12, but kind of those guys more. Those are the guys that, like, when it wasn't looking good, we still were in here at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, we still were in here late nights. We still were doing that kind of stuff. So, and I'm just proud, but what I'm even more proud of with Malik is, like, AB honor roll. He's starting to grow up, like, as a person. He takes his studying serious. He hasn't had a missing assignment since school's been in. Like, those are the signs of growth that shows me that, like, the basketball part is starting to get easy to him because he's gotten consistent in the other parts of his life.
Okay, so again, before we move on to the college teams, Hoopin in Jones County, Hoopin in Middle Georgia, Saturday. I'm going to be there. AUG B-Ball will be live reporting from the scene, a full slate of games. Greenbrier hits the court, I want to say, at 11:30 a.m., and Jones County and Butler wraps things up at 8 p.m. So nothing better to me than a day of basketball featuring Middle Georgia's best versus Augusta's best, hosted by Augusta's greatest coach alongside of the next coach we're going to the team coached by the next guy we're going to get to. I don't know if any of that made sense, in Dimitris. So let's move on to that. Augusta opens their season Friday at Barton College against Mount Olive. It's a thing they do every season, except for last year with the pandemic. Every season they go to Barton College, they play Mount Olive on Friday night, and then they play Barton on Saturday. I'll be there Friday for the Mount Olive game. The Jaguars had a tough season last year because they were absolutely obliterated by COVID. Played with 8 players because of 5 guys out for the season after 2 quick games, out for the season with COVID complications. And so the team went 9-7, which for Augusta is very much like uncharacteristic. In the 2 prior seasons, Augusta was 49-14, won a Peach Belt championship regular season and tournament during that time, made it to 2 straight NCAA tournaments. We return this year with a complete cast. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut to the footage of 2 of those guys, and that's 7'1" junior center Tyshaun Crawford, who has absolutely transformed himself in the 3 years since transferring here from Georgia Southern. He's dropped upwards of 50 pounds. He's got a great shooting touch. He's active. Just can't get enough. Just can't say enough about the double-double machine in 7'1" center Tyshaun Crawford. And then we're going to get a quick look at Miguel Arnold. And when we come back, I'll talk a little bit about this, see what you guys think. But shades of Keyshawn Sherrill, the all-time leading scorer in Augusta University history and Peach Belt Conference history, the way he comes off screens, running away from the basket, turning, getting his body squared, elevating, and making three-pointers, and he's just a pure shooter like Keyshawn was. He was our leading scorer before he went out after 2 games with COVID complications. The return of Arnold and Cracknell will be a huge deal this year, but there's also a lot more to talk about with this team. So after we give you a visual of the squad, you'll hear from Tyshaun. We'll come back and break down the Jaguars.
I've been watching what I eat first and foremost. My coaches told me that they wanted me to drop weight in order to be able to run the floor more efficiently. So this summer I was just watching what I eat constantly, counting calories and stuff like that. So I lost 25 pounds. I'm really proud of that one. They tell me to keep shooting the ball. They don't care if I make or miss. They just want me to get the ball in the air. You know what I'm saying? They believe that I can score. They believe I can constantly score on a consistent basis. So they tell me, hey, if you miss it, just keep going next shot.
Okay, so Keenan, you were at a closed-door scrimmage. I don't know if we're supposed to be at those or what, but I think you and I snuck in or something. But you were at a closed-door scrimmage last week. You got to look at the Jaguars. You go to almost all the home games. Tell me your thoughts on the team.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think Dip said recently that it's been, I don't know, is it 600 days or 300-something days since anybody's watched them live. So I hadn't.
In person, yeah.
And so yeah, I'm a fixture, but I haven't been for a while now. But I did, like you said, get a chance to go watch them just last weekend, and it's. I think I told you this a while ago, and Buck, you'll probably appreciate it too. But I told you this a while ago. I mean, that Dip, the teams that he puts on the floor are just fun to watch. I mean, you don't have to know a whole lot about basketball, but if you do know something about basketball, like I do and you do and Buck does, that makes it fun to watch them, because you hear people say all the time, playing basketball the right way, that's fun to watch, and those guys do it now. I know that maybe some of them didn't do it as a part of their nature when they first got here, but they do now, so it's just fun to watch them. Talent-wise, I mean, I think, and Dip probably would readily admit this one, talent-wise, they're as good, I think, and maybe even better than the team that made the Final Four run. So that's what I feel about what I saw.
Buck, you saw him in a practice the same day as the Select 60 about a month ago. What are your thoughts on the squad?
Very talented. I think he has some interchangeable pieces. He got multiple guys that can play multiple positions. The big fella was very impressive with his body. Miguel was, unbelievable. I just thought that kid was unbelievable. His motor continues to run. He talks, he communicates. He did some very good stuff out there. He's a leader, but the kid that I think is going to be the next guy is Jaquez Kirby. Once he figures it out on both ends of the floor and understand how Dip plays, his ceiling is, it's just, when you got with him out there and you got those local guys, Timmy Sellers and Whitehead, Augusta is in a good place right now. I think Dip he's going to hit a home run this year.
Talking about college.
I was very.
Sorry, I cut you off there, Buck. I try not to do that again. We're talking about college basketball, and we're talking about our local college basketball team, but, it reminds me with the season starting now, you just mentioned Jaquez Kirby, and you know him well. I remember, now Jaquez, by the way, is a graduate of Jefferson. Is it called Jeff Davis or Jefferson Davis, Buck?
Jeff Davis.
Jeff Davis High School in Hazelhurst, Georgia, small town. Graduated 2 years ago, signed with Murray State, played there. Murray State, by the way, is a legit mid-major. Everybody's called a mid-major these days. They're a real mid-major power. Maybe even you could even say a high major, home of home of Ja Morant, of course, basically an NBA All-Star. And so he signed with Murray State, played there for a season, and now he's transferred to Augusta University. So that kind of tells you a lot about what to expect from Kirby. But Buck, I remember a few, this would have been when he was going to be a sophomore. You were entering your second year at Baldwin after leaving Laney, and we were at Butler High School in the summer for a team camp, and you and Coach Boddy were talking about this sophomore from Jeff Davis. So his name has been ringing throughout the state, the region, even nationally ever since then. We've heard all about him, we know all about him, and now we get to see him play in Augusta, and we can't wait. But that kind of reminds me, because that just happens to be, and I'll rewind back to these high schools a little bit. That day happened to be the first time I ever saw Kobe Stewart play, and he was a rising sophomore at Cross Creek at the time. So when it comes to college basketball, I'll do a quick little rundown. We talked earlier with with Cross Creek head coach Lawrence Kelly. Well, Cross Creek's got playing last night, Kobe Stewart for Presbyterian College playing against Clemson. They've got Corey Trotter at Miles College this year. We talked to Darren Douglas. He talked about Coach D's guys, and some of those guys that he mentioned include Trey Gamillion, who was the Conference Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year for Cleveland State last season. He's a graduate of Aquinas, where Coach Douglas won a state championship. He's that Cleveland State team made it to the NCAA tournament. He also coached Daniel Parrish there, who plays for Florida International this season, was a part of a top 20 JUCO program last year. We talked with Kim Schlein. Jordan Dorsey was playing for North Carolina A&T against University of North Carolina yesterday. She was part of the leader of that state championship team. So all these teams, and I'll miss a few, but all these teams that we've been talking to have players out there on the Division I, high Division II level, playing as we speak in college, former players playing as we speak in college. But back to Augusta, we talked a little bit about Tyshaun and Miguel already. A couple other guys, what this team, in my opinion, is defined by is experience and, proven leadership. When the team went 49-14 over those two seasons before COVID hit, guys like Tyree Myers and Darren Lucas White were on the court along with Miguel Arnold and Tyshaun Crawford. And Tyree Myers, I know you guys will both like this story, and then we'll cut to the women and be on our way out after this. But Tyree Myers, I say he's the toughest, smartest, and most competitive player I've been around in all these years covering basketball from the sidelines. I can't say ever in Augusta history, because I used to play with a guy named Ricky Moore, who, I just can't put anybody ahead of him when it comes to those things. But Tyree Myers has been our point guard since the day he stepped on campus. This will be his fourth season running the show for us, and he's always been a guy. You see him in those clips. When Miguel's making those threes, who's delivering the pass at the right time? That's Tyree Myers. And when the team had 8 guys last year and Miguel Arnold and Troy Cracknell were out, all of our perimeter shooters, our best perimeter shooters, are out. When the team had 8 players, and then Darren Lucas White goes out with a head injury against Francis Marion, now we have 7 players. Well, Tyree, what does he do? He goes for 34 points, never scored more than 20 in a game before that, goes for 34 points. And, because that's what the team needed, and got us a big Peach Belt win that night. And in the huddle towards the end of the game, when we had the game wrapped up, Dip told me after the game that one of his teammates said, "Hey, Tyree, man, you got 34." And he said, I guess I shouldn't cuss on this. He said something like, "Man, I don't want to hear about that. I'm trying to win this game." And he meant it. And that is the kind of guy that Buck, you produced as a coach when it comes to all your players over the years. When it comes from Ricky Moore to Zepp Jasper and Christian Keeling, and now Dathan Harris and Chaden Stone and the guys that you're coaching now. And it's the kind of player you were, Buck, kind of player you were, Keenan. And I'm happy that we got to tip things off for the basketball season with a couple of Augusta greats on the court and on the sideline. And now on our way out, we're going to meet the Lady Jaguars from a recent open practice where the community was invited. And you'll hear from Kennedi Manning, a junior. You'll hear from Kierra Howard, a senior. You'll hear from Jaelyn Autman, a senior. They'll talk about, they'll answer questions from the crowd about picking your major and preparing for transitioning from high school to college when it comes to basketball and advice for that. You'll see November Morton, a pure shooter on the wing for the Lady Jaguars, and they're tipping off their season at home Friday against Southern Wesleyan at 8:30. Come out and support the Lady Jaguars Friday at 8:30 against Southern Wesleyan. It's part of a 2-game slate. There's a game before it at, I want to say, 6 o'clock. 2 other colleges. It's Georgia College versus Barton. And then the Lady Jaguars play again Saturday. You can find all the information about all that at AugustaJags.com. Tune into AUG B-Ball on social media. That's AUGBBALL. And also the AugustaSportsReport.com for coverage of all the stuff we've talked about here today. And thank you for joining us on our first show.
How do they pick their majors? Like, what?
How do you select your major?
How do you pick your major?
I'll answer. Okay, so when I first got here, I was a kinesiology major, and I just want to say it was very challenging. It's just a big transition from high school to college. Like, I don't want to say what I did. Yeah, the workload is different, and that you actually have to study. Like, you have no choice to study. Like, and you have to make time for it. You'll be tired. You don't have to skip the nap. Yeah, you have to skip it and study. But I changed it to kinesiology because I felt like, psychology, because I felt like, that better fitted me and my schedule, and I was actually interested. Like, do what you're interested in. Don't just change it because it's easier, but just do what you're actually interested in.
So I just want to piggyback. So your question is, how do you pick your major? So you don't know. Coming into college, you may have one major in mind, but like Ken said, you may end up changing. So I feel like just come in with an open mind and go into something that you're passionate about, and just talk to different people and network when you come to college to find out what you like and don't like throughout.
Also, to piggyback off of that, I came in as undeclared, so no major at all. You take your prereqs, like what you need, but I also had some electives like intro to business, communication, I like that more, so I chose that. So I would say those electives, those 3 electives that you have, you can dip and dabble in those too to see what you like.
So I got a question.
So our motto this year is passion over perfection. And our practice was far from perfection today. We made a lot of errors. Like I said, we're a work in progress. We have maybe a fourth of our system in, offensively and defensively. But every day, we ask them to come with passion. Because sometimes I think they get caught up in perfection. And then also, they got to be able to receive constructive criticism if you want to get better. It's not personal. We in this together, and our goal is to be dancing in the march. So it's a constant, we want to be good in March. We understand we got to work through some challenges right now, taking care of the ball, not playing better, knowing our defensive principles. But we'll get there, and thank you for the support, and please come back and watch us November 12th, 8:30.
Thank you.
And also, if you got a star on your paper, we got a gift for you. Meet us at the top. Go Jags.